not all production is good production.
Knowing your industry is going to be crucial if you're looking at something new. If you don't understand it, get to understand it and talk to somebody who does.
But is that loan going to make it through 18 months? And if you don't feel that in your heart, you shouldn't move forward.
I just experienced my first ever clawback, my last paycheck.
Should we do a little, maybe like a clawback challenge? First one to have a clawback after this episode, dinner at our local meat market next time we're together.
Well, hey,
I'll be down in Tampa. When is Murphy there?
That's
Murphy,
October.
Clearwater, that's October.
That's October. Yeah, so I'll be down in the Tampa area in October.
All right, so we'll add Sterling to
right.
this challenge as well. So first one with a clawback owes everyone else dinner.
We could include Ryan Collins because he'll be hanging out too. So shout out to Coco's Crush Bar in Clearwater, Florida. We can't wait to see you.
So here's a little known fact. If you've ever been to Clearwater and you go to Coco's, if you drink one of every one of their flavored Cocos, they'll give you a t-shirt. And Al will rip the sleeves off that t-shirt.
And it's worth it. But not off the realvolleyball.com t-shirt.
Realvolleyball.com, the only source for all of my volleyball needs. Thank you.
They got balls. They got a lot of balls.
And I only got one. So
and those if you're watching the Olympics, they got those really short shorts too. So they got it all.
Yeah. That's what I do my yard work in.
Hey, that's what I do my yard work in as well.
Welcome to the BDO Show, a podcast for passionate BDOs looking to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your co-host, Alan Peterson, and joining me today are Ryan Kroge and Christopher Hackney.
BDOs. Have you ever had a borrower bring in like a brother-in-law to do their life insurance? Doesn't end well, does it? We've all been there. When you require life insurance on your SBA loan, it's critical that you bring in a company that specializes in getting these policies in place for the SBA loans. The last thing you want is for life insurance to be the holdup. We all know that's a rookie mistake. SBA Protection Quick Close Life Insurance is the fastest, easiest way to secure the insurance protection that your borrower needs for their SBA loan. Their process is simple, hassle-free, and only takes a few minutes of your borrower's time. No lengthy paperwork, no complicated forms. They even have programs that don't require labs or doctor records for approval. And best of all, you will have the collateral assignment back in less than 24 hours. It's a no-brainer. Go to SBAprotection.com for more information or email Adam Bergen at adam@sbaprotection.com.
Today's topic is one that I know we all have pretty strong opinions on, and I want us to look at it from both sides of the coin. That topic is the elusive clawback. So for those that might not know, or you're newer in the game, or maybe you're not that familiar with the way this works, a clawback essentially is when you do a loan, you sponsor a credit, it gets approved, it gets funded, and then the deal goes bad. When the deal goes bad, you have to give back your commission. And depending on where you work, that all varies. The length of time for the clawback, as well as the severity of the clawback. So, this is definitely a topic that's interesting and one I talk about all the time, with other folks and friends in the industry. My 2 cents on it is that if we're given a lot of influence on the approval process and a lot of trust, the clawback, in my opinion, kind of balances that out. That being said, there's a lot of things that we can't control post-close. And there's times where a clawback happens that we really couldn't have avoided, right? Things do happen. That being said, it's interesting because we've got, Ryan, who has been in lending for a long time, as we always tease him about, in leadership and production, and Chris, who's now in the ivory tower as president of the division. I'm curious what you guys feel about this topic, because we have all very different viewpoints. Me as a production guy, it's easy to say, screw clawbacks, right? But I do understand them. And I do understand that it's a give and take, because if we're asking to get a deal done and then it goes bad, that is on us. But, let's open it up with you, Ryan. Tell me about clawbacks?
Yeah, so I agree with you for the most part there, Al. When you're in sales, when you're generating commissions, you've got to have some type of a structure, some type of a yin and yang, some type of a clawback for when you sponsor a deal and it goes bad. But to the degree of what that clawback is can be excessive sometimes at financial institutions. I worked for financial institutions that really didn't have a clawback until I joined Huntington in 2009, and their clawback was actually pretty simple. I thought it was agreeable. They only had two clawbacks, either early payoff or early default, and both were in the first 12 months, and it was prorated. So if it happened within the first 6 months, it was full commission on that deal. If it happened between month number 7 and month number 12, it was only half. So I thought that was probably one of the best clawbacks that I've seen that I think is accurate. Um, some of the clawbacks I've seen as well as first 18 months of a payback or first 18 months of a payment default. And let's not get wrong. A payment default can be defined by financial institutions differently as well. Some may say 30 days, some 60. I've seen some as far as 90 days. It's not considered a payment default until it hits 90 days. So I think some are good, some are bad. The ones that are out of your control, especially right now, really kind of frustrate me. And it's kind of in the air because some people are good with it, some people are not. But it's I've seen recently some banks put into their comp structure deferments, right? So we just got out the whole PPP, EIDL, COVID era where the SBA was making it very clear that, look, if you're having payment issues, go to your bank. They got to defer the payment. They got to defer it 3 months or until you can make those payments. Well, it became a habit now that we're out of COVID and everything is on the up and up. I had a deal 2 months ago close, 3 months ago close, and then last month they made one payment, and he came to me and said, "We're having financial difficulties. I need deferment." I'm like, how are you having financial difficulties? We gave you $250,000 in working capital. This is a very, very strong cash flowing company. How the heck do you need deferment 2 months into the loan? And he goes, well, my broker told me that if we want to get our first 3 months pushed to the back, just say you got a financial hardship and you guys have to do it. It said the SBA does it all the time and they like it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, that broker was immediately fired. I called him up, read him the riot, said, I'm not doing business with you again. So this was a broker as well as, you guys know me, I'm an in-state guy, right? Well, this was an out-of-state broker. So I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But I ended up explaining to him how deferments work and what they really mean. And technically, a deferment is a default. So if you request a deferment, you have defaulted on your note. You're going to manage assets and you are going to be looked at. You just created a significant amount of hardship on yourself for the interim of your loan life. So after explaining that to them, he said, oh, well, we don't want a deferment then. Yeah, we've got more than enough money to make payments. We've got receivables coming in. Things are going great. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. But we're working in an environment now where we've got brokers, attorneys, everybody saying, oh, always ask for a deferment, get that deferment. And banks are getting wise because when you get a deferment or if you issue a deferment, now they got to buy that loan back in the secondary market. So now they're losing money and on money they've already spent by your commissions, on staffing, on everything else for the loan. So it makes sense why they would have that deferment. But we as BDOs are out here fighting against it because you've got other people out there fighting for it, telling them it's a good thing. The SBA likes it. The banks will do it. It's no big deal. When in fact, everybody here on the show and out there watching, no, it's a huge deal. It is a default and you will get your wrist slapped for it and you will have a hard time after asking.
What about you, Chris? How do you see the clawback in your position? And from your viewpoint is a little bit different as, the Prez still lends, as we know.
The Prez still lends, but he never gets clawed back because I'm in charge of clawbacks. So there's that. Checks and balances. Hey, Supreme Court. Clawbacks. I mean, it's a sign of a partnership. If you're a lender, you're a partner, or you're a BDO, you're a partner. You're in a partnership with your lender. Let me get it correct. Like you're a team. So you can't expect to be compensated and your team takes a loss, right? We're all on the same team. So the loan doesn't get paid back. The loan gets paid early. You should expect some sort of compensation that's returned back to the bank commensurate with some sort of, loss. Now, as Ryan mentioned, it may vary between lender to lender. I've heard of people doing for the first 18 months, which kind of aligns with what the SBA SOP says as an early default. 100% clawback. There can be a 100% at 12 months, then 50% on the next 6 months. So there's various ways a clawback can be structured. Obviously, the less severe, the better for you as a BDO too. There's also clawbacks for early payments or prepays, which I think, Ryan, you mentioned that too. So
Right.
that sometimes you would think, well, why would someone be mad because they pay the loan back? Isn't that the whole purpose of, spirit of SBA? You want the loan to be repaid. But generally, these loans are sold on the secondary market to an investor. So when it is paid early, in good faith, generally you have to pay the investor back. If it's within like 6 to 8 months, you want to give that investor their premium back because they bought the guaranteed portion for a premium with the expectation that they will recoup that premium. And if the borrower repays the loan and they never recoup their premium, then it's like, well, I'm not buying any more Bay First loans because all their loans get paid off early and you're not going to have any investors to sell to. So like Ryan said, there's two ways or two reasons, default and accelerated repay. Obviously, it's better if your borrower is just paying off early. That's one thing. But if you've got a lot of default clawbacks, then you're probably not going to have a home there much longer. Sometimes we get so focused on the commission and that check and like getting that deal done, but you don't think future state. Like, sure, you could probably get that loan approved, right? If you push the right buttons and the right levers and structure it this way and say the right things in loan committee. But is that loan going to make it through 18 months? And if you don't feel that in your heart, you shouldn't move forward because that's why clawbacks were established. When I started at my current institution, we didn't have clawbacks. Then we rolled them out. We haven't had many, thankfully, because usually we work something out and we don't treat deferments as a version of a default here. It's just a sign that the borrower is coming to us and you as a BDO have reached out to them and worked something out to keep that loan paying as agreed when they come out of the other side of the deferment, hopefully there too. So clawback is one of the things, if you're a new BDO, you might not be used to coming from other sort of roles or sales jobs, but it's something that is important because if you get a huge commission check, then 6 months later, you got a clawback. They're taking that from, if you just closed a $5 million deal and you're expecting, I don't know, whatever that commission check is, half of it may be gone. And they're going to say, hey, XYZ LLC, the pizza shop you financed didn't pay us back. We're clawing that back out of your current commission too. So it's a way for you as a BDO to make sure you're not just making a loan just because it can get approved. Make a loan because it will be repaid in full as agreed, right? That is the standard, not just, hey, I'm making this loan because I can get it approved and get it closed and get my commission. If you don't feel like your bank, your partner, the person you wear their polos for, will be repaid, then you shouldn't be making that loan.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that, the partnership aspect, as you described, is how it is. I know that we all own stock in the banks that we work for, right? I think it's always a great idea to buy stock in the institution that you work with, that you represent. And I think that sometimes you have to think like a shareholder when you're making those decisions. Can I cram this deal down? Can I slide it through? Maybe, but why would I do that? I do. It's crazy that this episode happened. I just experienced my first ever clawback, my last paycheck. So
did you notice is the key thing? Were you compensated so much that you didn't even notice? I mean, be honest.
I noticed, but
okay. That's when you really made it. When you get a clawback and you didn't even realize that there was a clawback there. You're like, wait, oh gosh, there is.
You're like, oh, they must have just taken out extra taxes.
There's no way that was an actual clawback.
I looked at it. I was like, I thought I maxed out my 401k already. Where'd that money go? And then I was informed. No, but it's interesting because it's my situation on my clawback, Ryan. It's very similar. Well, not in that it was a broker that I ended up firing and the bank ended up firing. This situation was the borrower was running out of working capital. Well, we gave them $150,000 in working capital. What happened to the $150,000? Well, after he paid the broker their fee outside of the loan,
Ooh.
for $70,000.
Whoa.
It put them in a significant bad spot. So, I fired the broker immediately. The bank cut ties. We did the right thing. We reported it up the chain. You have to do those things. It's important for the integrity of the program. But yeah, I took my first L, and I'm putting an asterisk by it. I still think I'm making good loans.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. And there's a difference. There's clawbacks that you can control. Like Ryan said, there's clawbacks like
dude,
what happened to Alan.
$70,000
You
junk
can't really
fees.
control that.
Al, so here's a lot of things that a lot of BDOs don't understand. Like you teased me before, I've been doing this for 25 years now, so I've seen a lot, and I've seen banks sue brokers for that. And I've seen banks report those brokers to the Office of Inspector General, because it's very clear when you sign that 159, you are not getting compensated for doing this loan outside of this referral fee. And if he got compensated for doing a loan outside of referral fee, he signed a federal document fraudulently, and he committed fraud to the borrower, the SBA, and that financial institution. So he can, be sued, and probably should be sued and investigated by the OIG and the FBI. I mean, this is how serious it is, but a lot of banks won't take those steps. But with you saying that, Al, so over the last 4 or 5 years, about prior to the last 4 or 5 years, 98% of all my business has been here in Metro Detroit, right? And I can count on one hand in the prior 20, 21 years how many loans have been bad and I've had a clawback on them. Even through the dot-com bubbles, even through the Great Recession, that's how low of a percentage of my loans went bad. I started getting my first clawbacks when I started going outside of Metro Detroit, when I started going outside of Michigan, when I started getting loan brokers and business brokers that do deals nationally. That's when I started to get clawbacks. So what it taught me was I need to go to these brokers the same way I do to my borrowers. I treat every single one of my borrowers, every single one of my in-state business and loan brokers as relationships. I build relationships with them, I get to know them, and I let them know that I'm a local presence. This goes back to one of our other shows, know your borrower, but it also means know your referral source. All right.
Yeah.
One of these deals go bad in Metro Detroit, and I find out their reputation is ruined. I mean, all I have to do is tell a couple people the situation about how he does business with financial institutions, and he won't do business in this town again. And that's just how small of a community Southeast Michigan is. That's just how small of a community Michigan is. And everybody understands that. They know I'm one of the only guys here in this area that has a way of getting deals done. So they better respect and pay me when we book it. Now, you go outside of Michigan and they don't know, me from Adam. They don't know me from anywhere.
They don't know the baseball bat that you carry under the desk.
They only know the north of 8 Mile Ryan. They don't know the south of 8 Mile Ryan.
Yeah.
All right. And that even goes locally too. I can count 2 loan brokers right now that I've known for a very long time. I refuse to do business with here in the metro area. And a lot of local banks refuse to do business with them because they fudge numbers, because they're super aggressive, because they lie to the customers, they lie to the banks, and they just go after whatever bank's paying them the most, and they will do anything to get that deal closed. And local lenders will not do business with them. And I've told them to their face, stop sending me business. You are my competition. I do not trust you, and I will not do business with you. And fortunately, they stopped calling me. But going outside of the state, I had to learn the hard way that I really need to find a way to get to know these people that are referring me business outside of Metro Detroit. I had a referral source that I met about a year and a half ago that sent me a bunch of deals, and I closed 4 deals. All of them looked phenomenal on paper, had really good borrowers, decent sellers, all in the same industry too. I'll put it that way. Of all 4 of that I closed, all 4 of them have had stress within the first 12 months. One of them went back. I got clawback on one of them. The one that survived and is actually doing really well right now got a consultant in that field who helped turn him around and get him going. And what they found out through that transaction is that broker was fraudulently putting numbers and fraudulently putting SDE numbers out there and creating documentation to support it on a fraudulent basis. That consultant told me about it. I had the other 2 that are feeling stress who haven't defaulted yet, knock on wood, to go to this consultant learn what they can do to turn this around because he's an industry specialist. And so far they're doing pretty well. But I fired that broker. I immediately called him and said, you'll never do business with First Internet Bank again. Any of my cohorts, I'm sending them a text, letting them know your name, that you put fraudulent loans on the books, and you will not do business with anybody that I know. And he just kind of brushed it off like it was nothing. So that goes down to knowing your brokers too. You've got to know your brokers as well as you know your borrowers, because your referral sources are going to make or break whether you have a clawback, a clean portfolio, or if it gets nasty real quick.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways to ensure you protect yourself from a clawback is relationships. It's how strong are your relationships with your referral partners? How strong is your relationship with your borrowers? It's something I don't have as much time to do, but when you're in that first 18 and 24 month period, you should be checking in with your borrowers when you recently close a loan. Now, I'm not saying you got to call them for 20 minutes at a time, but a quick email here and there every 3 to 6 months, because borrowers are prideful. So if something's going south, maybe they don't want to tell you that, oh gosh, Ryan, I ran through my working capital and I wish if I can get another 100,000 or drew up my line of credit, or if they could be comfortable with telling you the issues or the stress that they're having, then you can help them.
Right.
If they're not comfortable, there's no relationship, then they're just going to tip over and you're going to have a clawback. Or if they're struggling, they get a consultant and they can share that best practice with you. Hey, here's what I'm doing, Ryan, to get myself right. Then Ryan can share that with the 3 other borrowers in a similar situation. Hey, this person helped this borrower out, similar situation. You guys should talk to this person too. So relationships, more than like the balance sheets and the liquidity and all the credit quality stuff, is, do you know the person that's referring the deal to you? How well do you know them? How much do you trust them? And how much relationship and rapport do you have with your borrower when things get tough? Are they going to reach out to you first to be honest and transparent for you to help them right size their loan and their business too? And
that's an important, real quick, Chris, that's super important. You have to create that relationship up front so that if something goes bad, they come to you before they go into anybody else. The last thing you want to find out that a loan has gone bad is when managed assets calls you or somebody else calls you. You want them to call you first. And that's establishing a relationship and treating it like a relationship and not a transaction like a lot of BDOs do. Sorry, Chris, I just had to jump in on that. That's just such a great point that needed repeating.
Yeah, and one of the things you often hear, well, like, hey, I didn't underwrite the loan. I think, Alan, you kicked us off with this. I didn't underwrite it. I don't approve it. How much responsibility do I actually have? What do you guys feel is our job? Like, what can we do to prevent, other than relationship, from a credit standpoint? Like, what's the most important factor from a credit standpoint? Is it like DSCR? Is it like less leverage, higher seller note? Is it liquidity?
Character, 100%.
It's character.
Yeah.
Biggest
Absolutely.
C. It's the capital C, in my opinion, man, because character tells you what somebody's going to do when things get tough. And if you don't know how to evaluate or analyze character, then you're at a significant disadvantage, in my opinion. And, I would say, in the tone to newer BDOs that might be tuning in or listening, not all production is good production.
Right.
This Friday, I'm going to be posting a free game Friday. That weekly.
Is it the shirtless one?
Media. That's the B reel from when we were in Tampa. But,
I feel a little left out that you've asked everybody on God's green earth except for me for this Friday.
I live right up the road from him, and I haven't been asked.
Oh, you haven't either.
Chris hasn't done it.
So it's not just me. Okay, just making sure.
Well, it is actually. I got to start doing them more frequently because it's something that I've just been too busy. But I got Javier George on there, right? And you guys probably know Javier. He's awesome. Yeah. And his advice, which I really liked, it was no one deal is worth a career because it's a small world, man. And people know. I mean, Chris, you just got back from Nagel Leadership Summit, which is the closest thing to an Illuminati meeting in government guaranteed lending.
I have a brand on my
closer
back.
to Brandenburg.
I know y'all. I know y'all talk about everything, and the fact is, it's like if you get a reputation for doing a bunch of bad paper, I mean, I know guys already.
You're unhireable.
They got bad reputation. Yeah. Oh, the guy who put up 5 hotels, 4 go bad. He jumped shop. He jumped shops.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that reputation, the places you really want to be at,
They
don't
don't
want you to be
want
there.
you. So it's not just the monetary, the financial impact of a clawback. It's the reputational risk that you have, or the reputation you build for yourself, where it might not be working out at the shop and you want to go elsewhere. And I call up, hey, Alan, hey, Ryan, this guy, used to work with you 2 banks ago or a bank ago. What'd you think of him? Oh, man, he had like 4 loans.
And we're
10
telling.
a year.
Oh, we're telling. For sure we're telling.
so
And that
quick.
goes for brokers too. You find
We
a
need to
broker that
tell,
all they're
yeah.
trying to do is just put stuff together and, go into the
Yeah.
shop that has to. So with great power comes great responsibility, all right? So when you work for a shop that's a high production shop, that's putting through a lot of loans, has a real big credit box, real aggressive credit box, and great people working for them, you as the BDO, man, you're the front line. You're the defense for that organization, because nobody wants to jump off the gravy train with biscuit wheels. All right. You want to stay on as long as you can and get your deals done. I can't take credit for that line. I can't take credit for that line.
Stop the show. Stop the show.
Whoa.
We're done.
Hold on.
Al all of a sudden got hungry about the biscuit train on the gravy train with biscuit wheels.
I skipped
lunch
because I was on an
now?
airplane this afternoon, bro.
Sponsored by Hardee's and
Thanks to realvolleyball.com, the only source for your volleyball needs.
That's going to go back to the mid to late 80s. I got that line and I thought it was the coolest line, and I've been using it ever since. I got it out of a Ghost Rider comic book. It was a Ghost Rider comic book, and that line was in there, and I've been using it ever since. So I can't take credit for it, but when I was a kid, I read that and I thought it was awesome.
That's what they call dropping bombs. All right,
That's
what the
right,
heck
baby.
were we just talking about?
Well,
we were talking about
being the line of defense, and Sterling's
absolutely.
not on this episode. He's out of town or out of the country. Wish him well and enjoying the trip. But he had a loan. Who else is going to produce? No, I'm just kidding. We do have people producing. Shout out to Austin. He's got a couple large term sheets out. We love him.
Heck yeah.
Finally. Sterling had a deal, I think maybe $4 or $5 million, large deal. We're coming down to closing. It was already approved, in fact. And this is when I said, man, this guy, I know he's a friend and coworker, so I know he has great character anyways. But there's certain times when you're testing, like, wow, you actually did that? Your character is even higher than like I would have even thought. And the borrower, I don't remember exactly, but it was something to the extent we were trying to verify, like, we verified equity, but one of the things one of our credit managers wanted to make sure, like, the PFS had a decent amount of cash on it, a lot of cash actually, like $1 million or $2 million compared to the, the transaction. Yeah. And they said, hey, make sure we can substantiate that. Doesn't have to be dollar for dollar, but let's get close, because of the bank statements we had at the time, maybe it was 20 or 30% enough for the equity injection, but there was a delta there. And part of the reason we were making that loan is because, had some decent cash flow. This guy was pretty liquid, or this borrower. And we got the bank statement. Well, no, it was taking forever to get the bank statement. Like, what's going on? What's going on? Oh, I can't get them. All these excuses. And then Sterling finally gets the bank statements. They run them through our software. We could tell it was a fraudulent doctored bank statement, first of all, but they still ran it through our software that we do to detect fraud. And I'll give Sterling credit. He's like, we're not doing this loan. Even though the guy actually had enough money for the required equity injection and still had some liquidity, but he lied and said instead of $1 million, he had $2 million, which there was no reason. We would have done it with the deal at $1 million. But if you're lying on a personal financial statement saying you have $2 million, we asked you, hey, we want to verify that you have $2 million. You said, yeah, no problem. Instead of just saying, oh, I made a mistake, I actually have $1 million. He could have said something then, but he doubled down and said, no, I actually have this amount. Doctored the bank statements, sent it to Sterling. Sterling catches that. Sterling could have said, hey guys, he said to me he only has $1 million. He could have done a number of things. It didn't have to do that. But you know what that means? That guy lacked character, that guy being that borrower. So if that loan were to go south, and I'm sure it probably has by now, he showed his true colors. And Sterling protected the bank in not moving forward with a $4 million opportunity with a lot of commission on it that was already approved, closing in 2 weeks. It's like, man, we don't need to be doing that. This is squirrely. It doesn't feel right. So I would say that to the BDOs out there, no one deal is worth your career. Always protect the bank if you can. When you find out things, protect the bank, because again, it's a partnership. You're on a team. It's not just you and your commission check. You are, without the bank, you can't make the loans. right? So it's a partnership. Even a loan broker, you're a loan broker, you got to have the money's got to come from somewhere. So if you're not protecting the place where the money comes from, you're not going to have the money to support those deals soon. You're going to be at a different shop.
It takes a BDO with a high moral character to be able to do that, because so many out in this industry just want to chase money. They just want to chase money. They just want to get paid, and they want to make a name for themselves. They want to make the customer happy, the referral source happy. They want to show how really good they are. When in fact, when you find fraud, when you find that it's going to be a bad deal, you got to cut it off right away, because more people in the industry will respect you for that than just taking a bullet. You know, that's not the way.
Dude, and like I said, I know Sterling through and through, and I know he has high character anyways, but if it could go any higher, it went through the roof. And granted, he got a $4 million deal right after that. So, and he still was number one. So who really cares at the end of the day? But still, he didn't have to do that, and he did. So as a BDO, you always got to protect the bank and remember that it's a partnership.
Jump at that opportunity. If you have the opportunity to protect the bank and to kill a deal, even if it's going to hurt your pocket in the short term, do it. It's going to help you in the long term. Chris, we had a deal at Bay First, and I got called in to speak with leadership. All right. So it was our old CEO and our bank president, who's now CEO, Tom, right? And hey, we're friends with the gentleman who is selling this building. We understand that you passed on the borrower, but another bank is looking at it. We understand that there's adequate cash flow. What happened? Did you drop the ball? No, I didn't. The gentleman had 3 federal tax liens and 2 Lamborghinis on his PFS. I knew that wasn't one that we were going to do. And Tony goes, get the hell out of the office and make some more loans. Good call. You know what I mean? And it was something where I was like, and it was Q4, Chris. I already cleared 30 mil. I was in the top. I was maxing out. There was no broker. I mean, it was an easy X in my pocket, but I'm not going to do those shady deals, because you got to remember, you got to lend like a shareholder. Right. And I think that big C in that character, I'm telling you, man, you rely on that. Everything's got to check out, but nothing matters more, in my opinion, than the character of the borrower.
Dude, outside of character, which I think we've driven that point home, from a credit standpoint, what would call, and we don't have to make this an underwriting call, which interestingly enough, at the Nagel leadership, there were a few credit managers that said, hey, I love the show. Like people I'd never met before, and pulled me to the side like,
awesome.
Oh,
shout out to credit managers.
Yeah,
awesome.
Shout out to, what was his name? Ted. Forget your lap, but Ted pulled me to the side. He said, love the BDO show. And I did say I would give Javier a shout out, but you already did drop his name there on this episode. But outside of character, like, what do you think is probably reason 1 or 2 that a loan would tip over for, if you're a younger BDO, to try to structure a deal in a certain way? So set it up on the right foot.
It would either, my number 2 would be enough access to working capital. Because let's face it, when you do a business acquisition, all those receivables, all that cash, all that liquidity gets sucked out by the seller. All right. So you're starting from ground zero. You're starting from day one, and you've got a big $1, $2, $3 million loan payment that's coming the very next month. So it's crucially important. I like the way our underwriters work. Our underwriters work and they look at the cash cycle of business. And when I look at a deal, I look at the cash cycle of the business as well, especially if it's a contractor, especially if it's a business that gets receivables that are net 30, 60, sometimes even up here in the automotive industry, net 90 days. They're going to need a lot of working capital to get through the next 60 to 90 days. And you are doing your customer a disservice if you are not packing that loan with enough cash or ensuring they've got enough post-closing liquidity on that PFS to get you through the next 3 months until those receivables start churning and burning and getting that engine firing for that customer. That's number 2. Number 3 is going to be industry, right? What industries are doing great? What industries are not doing great? I could tell you right now, during COVID, FedEx routes were just, everybody wanted to do FedEx routes because everyone was staying home and getting everything delivered. So Amazon blew up, e-commerce blew up, FedEx blew up. They're just doing phenomenal business. The P&D, line haul, still phenomenal because they always have dedicated routes, but P&D started falling off because FedEx started changing their contracts. e-commerce. If you were doing something, selling something that was blowing up in the COVID era, well, you're probably not doing so great right now. So a lot of these business owners recognize at the height of their cash flow and the height of their multiple, I got to get out now. But a lot of us, I got out of FedEx routes probably in 22 because I knew 21 was going to be the height of it, because I started seeing the contracts change. I started seeing the payment per mileage change. And again, this is knowing your industry. This is knowing your customer. This is knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, right? When to get out. And I knew that at that time I had to pull a ripcord. And I'll never forget, a year later in 2022, Mark comes to me and goes, Ryan, we need to stop doing these FedEx routes. I said, man, I stopped doing them a year ago. You haven't seen one come for me in a year. I knew this was coming. I knew it was going to start to crash and these numbers were going to go down. And the existing guys were going to be getting hammered with this debt. So knowing your industry is going to be crucial if you're looking at something new. If you don't understand it, get to understand it and talk to somebody who does.
And ask somebody who does, because, Ryan, not so long ago, a BDO on your team asked you about a FedEx route.
Yeah,
I think I texted you 3 days ago. I was looking at one, and you go, Jared, run, get out, run.
I said, unless it's line haul, go get out.
I passed on the paper, but my advice would be to do that kind of stuff where you can reach out to guys that have maybe been with the shop longer, been in the game longer, have more experience, are beating you in production year to date. Hey man, would you take a look at this? I know that some people are iffy, and just get real feedback, because I could have wasted a lot of time on that deal, right? But instead I was able to tell the referral partner, it's just not our cup of tea, sorry, it's just not for us. And you know what? I stayed friends that way with my referral partners.
Now I've had other BDOs that have had deals in Michigan and have called me up and said, hey, do you know so-and-so? Have you done business with so-and-so? Do you know where this liquor store, this gas station is located? And well, number one, I appreciate them checking in before coming into my hood. That pays homage to the king. Number two, yeah, man, I do a ton of local deals. So if you want to know something about a last name, a person, a broker, or a location, I'm more than happy to tell you about it. The goods, the bads, the ugly. If you don't understand the industry and it's something that I see on a daily basis, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about shop. It's when you're passionate about something, you can't shut up about it. That's just true about anything. And as BDOs, if you're passionate about doing loans, if you're passionate about an industry or a certain type of deal structure, like Jared, man, Jared's passionate about M&A type stuff. I'll call that guy on some industries that I know nothing about and I know he's seen a lot on, and he'll just spit me on the game on how to structure it and what to look for and what to look out for. But is what being in a networking within your industry is important. That's why knowing guys like Chris and Sterling, Al, guys like you and everybody else that we see on a regular basis, and talking to them about shop, talking to them about what they're seeing out there in different markets. Absolutely. It's important, man.
And to emphasize one point, asking about brokers to other lenders. Like I think Alan, I asked you about a particular broker like last week or so, or maybe it was a week before. If someone's coming to you, if I know you work with Brian or Alan, why are you all of a sudden working with me? Did they pass on your deal because your deal's not good? What's the story? How did you make your way to me? Right. It's one of the first things that when it's someone I don't know, hey, how'd you find me? Or who sent you over this way? Right. Oh, you work with Ryan? Ryan's great. What's going on over there? Tell me about, before I even talk about the deal, why did you reach out to me? And why are you not working with the person you normally work with? And I'll shoot a message. Hey, what do you think of this guy? Alan's not going to go call that broker and say, hey, I want that deal back up. There's Attitude of Abundance. That's episode, I think 3 or 4, whatever. You can look it up from the prior episode. But it's about doing your research and your homework with your peers to help you avoid a clawback and potentially working with someone that Alan might say, no, that guy, not good deals, consulting fees, had this issue with them, and it'll help you avoid a lot of headache there. So don't be afraid to talk to your peers about referral partners that you're working with.
Yeah, no, and I liked when we're talking about, undercapitalization is the number one offender, right? So adequate working capital in the deal is imperative. But I mean, recently I passed on a deal that it looked pretty good at face value, but then when we actually proved out cash on hand, the post-close liquidity was just unreasonably tight with nothing to mitigate it. There was no outside income to remain from themselves, their spouse, or their household at large. There was no, access to a retirement account, which may have a penalty, but you can access in a pinch, right? There was no parachute, right? It was enough cash to put in the 5% down and not much left. So, that's kind of sometimes an uncomfortable conversation, but when I'm dealing with a lot of, searchers in the entrepreneurship through acquisition or ETA space, I had to really level set the expectations. You know what? Maybe we should be looking at smaller deals, but there's still a lot of great value here. Let's do one that you can get done and actually close on and be comfortable. So you're not up at night post-close wondering how the heck we're going to get done. And when you do it the right way, they actually appreciate it because they understand, man, I'm married to my portfolio. I definitely follow up with my people and try to be there for them. You know what I mean? And even after the 18th month, because
they can come
entrepreneurs are
back.
serial entrepreneurs.
They'll buy another
Bro,
business,
that's
and
it.
they're going to continue to grow too. And also,
and they've got a network. And,
exactly. And experience is equally as important. I have I've seen a borrower that sent in a deferment notice, and that we have them write a little blurb on what's going on, tell us the story. Like, obviously we hear it verbally, but we doc the file with what's their story, what happened. And the first line, I felt bad. It was like, I had never owned a restaurant before, and we financed a restaurant to them, and I'm looking back at it, and it's like, well, someone in his family owned a restaurant, and we're like, it's a pizza shop, how hard can it be? Sometimes those businesses are hard, and don't assume that just because someone has worked in an office and they're a C-suite person and they can run a pizza shop on the side. That's the quickest way a business can tank too. If you're buying a business with little experience in that business, and you're taking on let alone $300,000, maybe $1 million of debt, and you don't know squat about that business, that's dangerous because you're buying something with a learning curve. So you need to really quiz your borrower. Hey, what interests you about this industry? If you don't have experience, how are you going to learn the industry? Who's helping you? Is there a manager that's staying on? You can't overlook that experience component, because if you don't have it and the loan's closed, it's hard to learn the business quickly and salvage that. So don't overlook experience too.
We're about at the hour. We just want to remind everybody, if we can, to continue to send in those questions. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and be sure to reach out to us if there's anything that you want us to touch base on. If you have specific questions or anything at all, that's what we're here for, and we love it. And it's just the BDO Show at artofsba.com. That's the BDO Show at artofsba.com. No Gmail addresses over here, y'all. Thank you for joining us.
Give us your stories too. If you've got stories, if you've got crazy clawback stories, write us a paragraph. We want to read them on our podcast. We want to talk about stuff like that. We love stories. So you got anything crazy, shoot it in.
If you like the show too, and you see us around, pull us to the side. Tell us you like that. That brightens up my day up when I hear that. Yeah, and just say something that you'd like for us to feature on the show. If it's in person, you forget to shoot an email.
And if you want to say we took it too easy on clawbacks, and I'm full of because clawbacks are the devil, that's all right too. I'll take that.
Or if it's your birthday, let us know, and Hackney will sing happy birthday to you.
That's on episode 35, I believe, for sure. Hey, but protect your neck, protect your bank.
Your neck. Yes.
Protect your time.
That's
protect
right.
Your time.
Protect your time, protect your neck, and pipe don't pay.
That's it. Pipe don't pay, folks. No. Don't be posting those term sheets on LinkedIn. It's a bad look. Thanks for joining us.
That's right. Get on out there on that train, that gravy train with biscuit wheels, and keep it rolling.